The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. This lesson contains 12 characters, 9 of which are based on a very simple pictogram which, for over 3,000 years, has represented 2 distinctly different things, either a woman or a ladle or spoon. In today's characters, we'll be talking about the one referring to a woman, not the spoon. As a variation of the person radical, we've already encountered it 3 times. Reviewed here in 北, 画, and 死, and of course any character containing them. Let's have a quick review. Notice that all 3 characters contain a person on the right side. Whether that represents a woman is hard to determine, although some etymologists think it does. Notice, too, that some etymologists insist that the character for change, 画, the upside-down person, should be drawn with a distinctive downstroke. And some character fonts reflect this interpretation, as I've shown here. In any case, we assume this pictogram means a woman in today's lesson, pronounced third tone, 比, 比. As a standalone form, it's extremely rare, but it does enter into plenty of other important characters, such as the following one. Also pronounced third tone, 比. As you can see, it's 2 women standing close together, giving it the meaning of close proximity, one next to the other. Again, we should take a look at another character we saw before. One person following on the heels of another. 从 from lesson 30. Note the difference. 从 meaning to follow, and 比 meaning to be near or next to. 比 meaning next to is extremely useful in making comparisons, since 2 things far apart are difficult to compare. They must be placed side by side. 我哥哥比爸爸高30几公分. My big brother is more than 30 centimeters taller than our dad. 你的事情不会比我的急迫. Your plans are not more urgent than mine. 火灾事件10月比9月增加20%. There were 20% more fire incidents in October than September. 西餐不比中餐多样化，例如面食。Western food is not more varied than Chinese food, pasta being an example. 他的生活过得比想象中要好得多。 His standard of living is much better than we had imagined. Notice that 要 can be dropped from this sentence without changing the meaning. 法国的餐点不会比日本的精细。French food isn't any fancier than Japanese food. 他后来的著作都不比这本好。Her later literary works were no better than this one here. 相比 literally means to compare two things side by side. 若跟光速相比，其他都像是在爬行。Compared to the speed of light, everything else is just crawling along. 比例 means a proportion of one thing to another. 人口中男女的比例是多少？ What's the proportion of males to females in the population? 不成比例 is a phrase meaning something is out of proportion. 背景中画的马不成比例。The horses in the background are not in proportion. 如今不想生字的人不成比例的多。Today, the number of people not wanting to have children is disproportionately large. The resultative compounds 比得上 and 比不上 express the possibility or impossibility of comparison. 他的细工没有人比得上。No one's quality of fine workmanship can compare to his. 妈，我不可能比得上他。Mom, there's no way I can do better than her. Now we come to our third character in this lesson, which rarely appears today, but is common in classical Chinese, and also appears inside many other characters. It's a picture of a mouth with words coming forth, meaning to speak. Pronounced first tone, 曰, 曰. Don't confuse it with the sun, 日, which is skinnier, while 曰 is wider and flatter. To give an example of 曰, we are fortunate to have so far learned all of the characters in this example of classical Chinese except one. One which I'm saving for a more in-depth explanation in a future lesson. Most people will come upon 曰 in connection with ancient philosophers or masters, and this example is no exception. It's a quotation from one of Confucius' favorite disciples, named 子路. 子曰：名不正，则言不顺；言不顺，则事不成。The master says, if names are not correct, then language does not accord with reality. If language does not accord with reality, then nothing can be carried out successfully. The meaning of 则 is then, or as a consequence. This quotation gave rise to a modern four-character idiom, 名正言顺, or its mirror opposite, 名不正，言不顺. The best English translation I've found for 名正言顺 is within one's authority, something perfectly justifiable. Here are two modern examples of this expression, one affirmative, one negative. 父母可以名正言顺地过问子女的事情。 It's perfectly acceptable for parents to take an interest in their children's activities. 君主强取他国土地，显然名不正言不顺。It's clearly indefensible that a ruler should seize the land of another country. The fourth character in today's lesson is based on 曰. So, 曰 naturally had to be introduced first. This new character combines 比 above and 曰 below. Pronounced first tone 接 and meaning all, every, or entire. This usage derives from the meaning of 比 meaning side by side, and 曰 indicating speech or voices, together referring to many people speaking at once. All of them, everybody, the entire group. It tends to be a rather literary character, replacing 都 in the colloquial language. Here are two idioms in which 接 appears, beginning with 人人皆知. Everybody knows this. It's common knowledge. 他出众的外语能力，人人皆知. Her remarkable foreign language ability is widely acknowledged. Notice the expression 出众, literally above the crowd, meaning exceptional or remarkable. 你朋友好赌打架的过去，人人皆知. Your friend's past as a gambler and a brawler is no secret. Everybody knows. Remember that fourth tone 好 is a verb meaning to enjoy doing something. The next two examples contain the idiom 比比皆是, translating as it's very common. It can be found everywhere. From the original 比 meaning side by side, one right next to the other. 在东京不会说日语的人比比皆是. There are plenty of people in Tokyo who can't speak Japanese. 在法国好的餐厅可说是比比皆是. In France, good restaurants are to be found everywhere. Now we need to review two earlier characters, 层 and 屋, both having a layer of sod covering the roof as insulation from the cold. That green layer of sod became confused over time with another pictogram showing a person seated with knees bent, as seen from the side. A tiny slip of the writing brush and those two distinct drawings became one. We encountered the layer of sod in 屋 and 层, and now we need the seated person pictogram for our fifth character today. This new character shows a person seated on the back of another, as when being carried up a mountain. Naturally, progress would be very slow and cautious, lest both guide and passenger tumble down into a ravine. This character is pronounced second tone, ni, and is usually reserved for transliterating foreign names and terms, such as Niboer for Nepal, Niluohe for the Nile River, Niguding for nicotine, and Nilong for nylon fabric. Today, we're more interested in characters derived from ni. If the water radical is added, we end up with today's sixth character, meaning mud, soil, clay, or earth, rendered as either 泥土 or 泥巴. The ni phonetic makes total sense, because slogging through a slurry of mud and clay would also involve very slow progress. Water plus this clay-like mixture gives 水泥, cement, as in the construction material. Far more useful in spoken Mandarin, however, is today's 7th character, combining the mouth radical with ni phonetic. Originally pronounced second tone ni, it meant constant murmuring. In conversation, however, it functions as a very useful sentence particle, pronounced with a neutral tone, n, n. Here are 3 major ways to use it. A purple frame indicating each particular pattern. The first pattern is with question words such as 什么, 怎么, 为什么, 如何, etc. 你找什么呢? What are you searching for? 你怎么这么久才到家呢? How come it took you so long to get home? 如今诈财事件大增，要如何制止呢? Money scams have increased a lot lately. How can they be stopped? 你何不跟花心的男友分手呢? Why don't you break up with that two-timing boyfriend of yours? The second pattern with na is asking where something or someone is, asking others' opinion, or switching roles in a hypothetical situation. 我的手机呢? Where's my cell phone? 你一个人来? 太太呢? Just you? Where's your wife? 我要吃凉面，你们呢? I'm ordering cold noodles in sesame sauce. How about you? 要是我呢，才不会这样拖。If it were me, I wouldn't put it off like that. And the third pattern is somewhat like an English progressive participle, emphasizing at that moment. 别吵，哥在念书呢。Keep the noise down. Your brother's studying. 啊，有人找你呢。Dad, somebody's looking for you. The optional preposition 在 could also have been used here. 爸，有人在找你呢。The 8th character today contains the foot, 指 from lesson 5, meaning to stand still or stop. Combined with the woman radical, it means here, this place, or this thing. Pronounced third tone, 此, 此. Keep in mind that Chinese society in ancient times was matriarchal. So the woman element represented the elder matriarch, around whose life the clan revolved. Her place was at the center of this society. 此后 literally means after this. 听说女优好赌，此后他不肯娶她。Once he learned that his girlfriend loved to gamble, he wouldn't marry her. 此外 translates as outside of this, beyond this. 此外，爸没有多说什么跟你有关的。Other than that, Dad didn't say anything more having to do with you. 因此 can be read as because of this, or that's why. 我们很通气，因此我明白他的意思。We think alike. That's why I know where he's coming from. Here's another example of 因此 plus another phrase with 皆, meaning all. 人皆有过, everyone has their faults. 人皆有过, 不能因此否定他的成就. Everyone makes mistakes. You can't for that reason alone deny his accomplishments. 如此 is a very common expression, literally meaning like this. 我没想到他如此小气. I never thought he'd be that narrow-minded and petty. You may have noticed I often translate 此 as that, because it means to such an extent, to such a degree, which in English is better rendered as that, to express unpleasantness best kept at a distance. 有如此众多的因素使他出家. So many factors made him become a monk. You'll recall that 出家 means to leave one's family and enter a Buddhist monastery or nunnery. 如此, like this, can be expanded in other phrases. 事已如此, 通知大家也来不及. The way things stand now, it's too late to notify the others. 早知如此 is a great way to translate English past perfect tense. Had I known this at the time, 早知如此，我就不回去了. If I'd known this beforehand, I wouldn't have gone back. 一向如此 means it's always been like this. 你一向如此出众、精明，别人比不上. You've always been so exceptional and bright. Nobody else even comes close. 别人的想法他听而不闻，一向如此. She ignores other people's opinions and always has done. Another useful phrase is 到此为止, literally up to here and stop, which can be translated in many ways in English, depending on the tone of voice. From a friendly, let's leave it at that for now, to a more exasperated, I'm done with this and through with you. 今天的工作就到此为止吧. Let's call it a day, shall we? 我不想吵了，我们到此为止. I'm in no mood to argue. Let's end our relationship right here and now. Today's 9th character puts number 2, 二, underneath 此. To create the first tone character, 些. It began as a particle placed at the end of incantations and curses. But during the Tang Dynasty around 1600 years ago, it was borrowed for what it looks like, number 2, right here. In English, it's generally rendered as a small quantity, some, a few, or a little. It helps to express the plural in Chinese, which, as a rule, generally ignores the concept. 他们有一些黑道背景的朋友. They've got a few friends with a criminal background. 相比之下，你们的技术好一些. On comparison, your technique is slightly better. Notice 相比之下 to say on, by, or in comparison. And pay attention to the position of 一些 after the adjective or verb, the opposite of English. To say a few or a little, the number 1 can be omitted, as in the following examples. 我们从外卖餐厅买些东西来吃吧. Let's order some food from a takeout restaurant. 不能否认，女人比男人活得久些。It's undeniable that women slightly outlive men. 这些 sometimes pronounced 这些 is the demonstrative pronoun for these. 我才没有功夫关心这些事情。I don't have time to worry about these things. 你说这些话是什么意思呢？ What do you mean by saying all this? Remember that Chinese doesn't make a clear distinction between singular and plural, so 这些话 could refer to one sentence or many things that the person said. The 10th character in this lesson is unrelated to the woman component, but it enters into the following characters, so we need it. It's useful in its own right. It's a cow's horn, pronounced third tone, 脚, 脚, with a less common, more literary pronunciation of second tone, 绝, 绝. Starting with the physical object itself, certain animals have them. 他把羊的两只脚切下. He cut off the ram's 2 horns. Some things resemble a horn. So, 我早上一定吃牛角面包. I regularly have crescent rolls in the morning. Since it's a French word for that flaky and buttery horn-shaped roll, it's properly pronounced croissant. The expression 口角, meaning an argument or quarrel, is reminiscent of the English phrase to lock horns with someone, verbally, of course. 他因为看人不顺眼而有口角. He took a dislike to the guy and started an argument. The phrase 顺眼 means to find something pleasing to the eye, with 不顺眼 being the opposite. Based on the idea that a bull's horns are either for self-defense or for attacking a rival, the meaning 角 was extended to include the meaning of a competitor or a struggle for supremacy, which naturally leads to the protagonist or main actor in a story or movie. The Greek word protagonist also means the first or main combatant in a life and death struggle, so it's quite similar to the Chinese. 电影的主角已定下来了. The leading actors in the movie have already been chosen. 打架事件中的男主角就是他. He's the one who played a leading role in the fistfight incident. The 11th character is composed of a mouth and 词 plus a horn underneath. 词 is colored purple because it's the phonetic for the horn-like feathers on the head of an owl, appropriately named the horned owl. The mouth radical was later added to refer to the mouth of this bird, and finally, the mouth of any animal, including humans. It's pronounced third tone, 嘴, 嘴. 口 is the literary word for anything mouth-like, such as an entrance, exit, or opening, whereas 嘴, with rare exceptions, always refers to an actual mouth. 你嘴上怎么搞的? What happened to your mouth? The most common way to say mouth is by adding unstressed 吧, 嘴巴, to create an instantly recognizable noun. Single character words often lead to confusion without sufficient context, so adding 吧, z, or 头 serves that purpose. Again, this is the way Chinese solves the overabundance of homonyms in the language. 别跟他说他的大嘴巴 是出名的。Don't tell her. She's known for being a blabbermouth. 别多嘴，没有人问你话。Keep quiet. Nobody asked you. 多看，多听，少多嘴，日子会过得顺些。Watch more, listen more, and keep your thoughts to yourself. Your days will be smoother sailing. By adding 多舌 after 多嘴, we get an expression for being gossipy and meddlesome. 有关他的事，最好不要去多嘴多舌。It's best not to go meddling in matters concerning her. 要不是你多嘴多舌，事情不会搞成这样。If you hadn't shut your mouth off, things wouldn't be so screwed up right now. 吵嘴 means to quarrel, bicker, or dispute. Similar to 吵架 that we learned before. 他心情不好，跟父母吵嘴了。She's in a bad mood after quarreling with her parents. 顶嘴 is the correct expression for talking back to an elder or answering a superior defiantly. 妈妈责骂你的时候，不可以顶嘴。When mom criticizes you, don't talk back to her. 我小时候不曾跟父母顶过嘴。When I was young, I never talked back to my parents. 为了哥哥顶嘴，爸爸用力地打他耳光。His defiant reply got him a hard box on the ear from Dad. And now, the 12th and final character in today's lesson is an important one, composed of the horn radical, a knife, and an ox. Pronounced third tone, 解, 解, and as a phonetic fourth tone, 谢, 谢. What does it mean? A look at the original oracle bone drawing shows that it was the depiction of two hands cutting off a bull's horns, and by extension, slaughtering and butchering the animal. The two red dots indicate the bloodiness of the process. Depending on the combination in which it appears, this character can mean anything from dissecting or pulling something apart, untying and removing ropes or clothing, solving and explaining complicated problems. We'll begin with the simplest example of unfastening clothing. 爸爸把背心解开了。Dad unfastened his vest. 化解 means to settle a dispute. Literally, make it dissipate. 太太不悦，你要如何化解？ How are you going to deal with your wife's disapproval? 解说 translates as to break something down and explain it. 他解说了我电脑的性能。He explained the functions of my computer. When we cannot break something down into simpler components, we don't really understand it. So the meaning of 解 extends to the idea of comprehension. Here is a common four-character idiom. 百思不解, literally, thinking about something 100 times and yet still not understanding it. 她的话使人百思不解. What she said left everyone totally baffled. You may remember in Lesson 14 where I explained that liao was an infant swaddled in cloth, arms and legs bound tightly inside. The infant is completely constrained, giving rise to the meaning of to finish, to bring to a conclusion, with the extended meaning of to understand clearly, resolving a question once and for all. Now comes a very common expression, 了解, meaning to understand, comprehend, or find out. 我不了解你的问题何在. I don't understand where your problem lies. 你需要了解他的为人. You need to figure out what kind of person he is. Here is our color chart with today's 12 characters. 你比约你比接此些脚嘴解 and 呢. Here's a recap from today's lesson. 1. This lesson contains an element having two interpretations, either a woman or a ladle or spoon. 9 of today's characters incorporate the woman element. Ancient China was a matriarchal society, so the woman component, 比, was an important one. 2. Two people, side by side, forms the comparative degree in Mandarin, based on the idea of close proximity. 3. 约, meaning to speak, was included so that the rather literary 接, meaning all or every, could be clearly explained. Many people together speaking at once. 4. The unstressed particle ne is based on the phonetic of a person being carried on one's back, pronounced ni. It has important uses in conversation, such as asking questions and expressing action in progress. 5. This ni phonetic with the water radical means mud or clay. Water so thick with sediment that walking through it is like hauling a person up a mountain on one's back. 6. The matriarch of a community was at its very center. So, 此, meaning this or here, was created by a depiction of where she stood. 7. The number 2 below 此 became the character 些, meaning a small number or quantity. 8. I added the ox horn radical 脚 in this lesson so that I could include the characters 嘴 and 解, which both contain that horn. The ox horn can refer to real animal horns or anything horn-like, including the ear tufts on the horned owl and its beak, bread rolls, corners, and angles. Figurative meanings include locking horns with someone, which extends to being the protagonist or actor in a story or movie. 9. The character 解 depicts the slaughter of a bull and cutting it up into pieces. This everyday occurrence expanded to include not only dissection, but untying knots, solving and explaining problems. Now you will find a short quiz on double, triple character, and longer expressions. Answer using only the characters learned so far. Thank you for watching and listening.